Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Xwf Podcast with your host, Chronic Chris Page, them no good bastards, Thunder Knuckles, Bobby Bourbon, and yes, if available, Bearded War Pig. And the action starts now.
And welcome to another episode of the Xwf Podcast. Chris Page here. It's a Sunday afternoon in lovely Florida on my end. Joining us today, we've got them no good bastards, Bobby Bourbon, Thunder Knuckles. What's going on, guys? How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for our guest today. Pretty good weekend so far. How you doing, Chris?
I'm tired of shit. I'm not even gonna lie. It's been a long riding week for me. Dealing with Mr. Demos. Outside of that, man, I can't really complain too much. TK, what's going on with you, homie?
Living the dream, and I am ecstatic to have on our next guest. I'm just over the fucking moon. Today,
is it a good day today?
It's a great day because we have Centurion.
Well, you didn't let me bring Ned in.
But that's your fault, not mine.
No, that's not my fault.
Well, since neither of you want to do it, ladies and gentlemen, Ned K. Ned, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Bobby. It's just going to be really fun to talk to today's mysterious guest that nobody has mentioned yet. And I've talked with him a bit in the past, so it's going to be fun to do this kind of podcast with him, pick his brain a little, and also hear some of his responses to the questions. So I'm doing fairly well.
Ned, I have to tell you, and I think I speak for Bobby and TK and the XWF in general. We missed you last week. It was your presence was definitely missed. The professor was missed. We're glad to have you back this week with us, bud.
Well, sometimes I got science I got to do. I can't always be professing around here.
Well, that's true. Or shove it results, but hey, who's counting, right? Tell you what, let's try this again, right? So hold up, let me do this the right way for you because you're a legend in the game. So, ladies and gentlemen, our guest today, joining us on the podcast, XWF legend, WGWF legend, has probably held more championships than all of the left hand maybe combined. Guys, he is a good friend of mine. Centurion, welcome to the show. Is that better for you?
Yeah, that's better. Thanks very much. I appreciate it. Thanks, Paige. Like I said, like we said in the pre-recording, this takes us back quite a bit because we shared some recordings back in the day.
This is only, I don't know, 3 years worth maybe. This is definitely not our first rodeo. It's good to talk to you again. It's been a hot little minute. I know you.
Good to hear from Robbie Bourbon and good to hear from Ned K.
Yeah, these guys are fundamental to the program. They keep me in line.
And then Thunder Knuckles is also here. That's kind of cool too.
Yep.
So I guess we have a different episode today with issues with the internet, if you will. We don't have results per se to deal with right this second, but with the history that Centurion has with the XWF, my history with Centurion, some things that are happening here moving forward, I thought it would be just a good idea to sit around and just have a little chat and discuss, the legacy of this character because he goes back like he's CCP old. It's one of those things, right?
Well, I don't need when did you come in?
The character was created in 97.
When did you? Okay, well, you're living the game longer, but when did you come in the XWF?
Oh, the first shot was in like 08, 09.
Yeah, I was gonna say you were several years after I cut my teeth at this place. So
Yeah, I wasn't here long. It was a cup of coffee and I was back out the door.
yeah, and then I followed you like a madman.
Was that about? No, because I came in 07, 08, and then I came
Mhm.
back in, yeah, maybe. I
Yeah,
guess
no,
that does.
I joined WGWF in 2011.
Yes. Okay. Yep. Yep. All right. That's about right.
Yeah,
Broke away when I broke off. I didn't do shit, and then I opened up the WWF, and then Nick Ryan is the one who took credit for
we don't
getting
have
you
to
over there.
give anyone credit that's not here. Right? So we don't. We could just say that I discovered it on my own. I'm like a better Christopher Columbus. I discovered a new land, and even though there's people there, I claimed it for my own.
Well, I just thought hearing the name would make you so happy you'd want to puke. But
I'm sure his ears are tingling right now.
hey, got a sandwich? No. We'll get into some of that stuff, but like Ned and Bobby and TK, like before Cent and I reminisce and go down memory lane, let me turn it over to you guys because I'm sure that there's some questions that you may have or some things you guys want to talk to him about.
No,
Okay.
no, I
Okay.
guess go fuck myself. All right.
Well, no, no, no. This is a family-friendly show. I would just tell you to masturbate. Um, so I don't know. Like, I guess I could pull some nonsense out of my ass. First off, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here. It's good to talk with you, Sen. I've been looking forward to this. Little disappointed we don't have show to talk about quite yet, but
Yeah,
that's out of
it
our
was
hands.
preempted by the Westminster Dog Show, I hear.
Yeah, see, you're an old school wrestling fan. If you don't get that reference, you're that was wrestling before the Attitude Era, literally.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, uh, yeah, man, it's good to have you on here. I've talked with you a little bit here and there, just mostly in DMs. To be honest, I really don't talk with a ton of people outside of the podcast. Like, again, it's very sporadic here and there. We'll message each other, with the exception of TK, who is my better half and basically keeps me in check and makes sure that I don't burn down everything. So I don't know if I should really jump into any questions or anything like that. I just want to talk about the last time we faced each other was about a year ago. It was a
Hmm.
glass cage match for the Heart Championship. Um, I liked your work, man. You know, I wanted to bring that up. Say it was an honor working with you. You're always a good opponent. Um, what have you been up to since then?
Well, so after I lost the belt, and then I had my match with um, Warstein for the Universal title, and
Heck, you couldn't even go 4 minutes into the show.
I know.
Okay.
I'm not going to revisit who won or lost that. We'll just call it a draw. But I will say I didn't walk away with the belt. And so as far as the XWF is concerned, I've been mostly part time. I'm over in UGWC with Centurion, and I won their cross hemisphere title. I was in there. They had this wrestle stock thing a year ago where anyone from any Fed can jump in and whatever. I finished second in that tournament, and I was like, oh, I haven't been outside. The Centurion character has never been outside of the XWF in like 15, 20 years. And personally, I hadn't role played outside the XWF since I left WGWF. So I wanted to give it a shot. Um, and so I've been doing pretty well over there, while also still kind of maintaining a bit of a presence over in the XWF. But that hard title stuff, that was fun. That the match that we had, um, I mean, I can remember a couple of matches that I had in that run that were great. Between that one, the Tristan Slater match, I thought was great. Um, the TK, like as much as I don't want to give TK credit for anything, that match that the two of us had was awesome. So I loved that run, and I loved the people that I faced during that run.
Cool. So, just to go back a little bit, you brought up Wrestle Stock. I participated in Wrestle Stock. Came in second place myself. So here we are. We can just toast each other with our silver medals. Um, I really think. Is there anybody else in the XWF you think should go try Wrestle Stock just to flex and see what it's like? Because it's a unique environment. It's a unique experience. At least it was for me.
Yeah, it is, especially when you remember it's one role play for the entire week. It's not like, I mean, no one's doing the madness that is Chris Page. That's just dropping role plays whenever there's a minute. Um, it's one role play, and you have to put whatever your best material is. You have to put it into that one because that's what's going to be judged for the entire tournament. Um, I mean, anyone could do it. But I honestly think that's where the I almost want to say the folks over at Anarchy probably have more of a leg up because they have to do the same thing. They have to save their best stuff for a short uh, time frame, and so they might be better suited for something like a wrestle stock because of that, as opposed to folks who do warfare. They do 3 role plays over a 2 week period, so they can spread their stuff out a little.
Right. So, on that note, what is your take on it's something we've discussed here quite often? Is especially regarding anarchy, is it's one thing to write 1,000 words; it's another thing to write 1,000 good words. You said bringing your best material. What methods do you usually follow when you have to write something that's shorter versus when you have a little more leeway and you have more words to work with?
So when you go into one that has a cap, especially when you do anarchy, you have to know before you even sit down to write what your ultimate goal is. Because you can't. I know sometimes but at least back in the past, and then sometimes when I was doing it, warfare, you could kind of start writing and then kind of go wherever the mood takes you. When it comes to anarchy, you have to have your end game set, and then you basically have to not waste words. Um, you can't beat around the bush for anything. You can't really set much of a scene. It's really hard to set a scene. You almost have to go into it. Here's where you are. Here's what we're talking about. Boom, go. Which could be it's a separate challenge than what a lot of the folks who do like the longer role plays.
Okay. TK, Ned, you guys have anything? TK, I'm gonna throw it to you, man.
All right, I got a couple. How have you kept the character Sint so relevant for so long?
Um, well, I mean, a lot of people will basically tell you that I haven't been relevant ever, 20 years. Um, but but perhaps that's the point. Maybe that's how I do it. Is that I've never Scent was never a trend chaser. Like you would never like how I was in 2003 is very similar to how I am now. At least in terms of the way I write. Now, personality wise and out of character, I couldn't be any different. But I had I had sort of an idea in mind when it comes to Centurion that was a little bit different. I started in a Fed. My XWF is not my first Fed. The first Fed I started with had a lot of very dark and broody characters that went really hard into the violence and like the very morbid stuff. That was that original Fed that I was in. And so my idea to stick out was to just not do that. It was um, to be very much even keel, and that translates. the characters that usually burn out are the ones that go heavy into the character, the actual character building stuff. The ones that kind of can go with the flow. Those are the ones that usually stick around, and I've been very much a go with the flow kind of guy.
All right. How did it make you feel whenever you went outside of the XWF and you had success recently?
I was a little shocked, to be honest, because it's such a change. Everyone thinks, if you at least if you go on Twitter, which Twitter is the bane of everyone's existence. I don't know why I'm on there, but if you go on there, everyone has this idea of, well, if I can do well in one place, I can do well anywhere because writing is writing. That is incorrect. Judges see things differently. The audience sees things differently. The way that what wins in some places doesn't necessarily win in other places because they like a different flow dynamic. I had to change my writing when I went to the UGWC. I didn't know that originally. I thought what I was doing could translate over. It only when I really started getting to the title contention and I started losing matches that I thought I was supposed to win, that I'm like, what isn't connecting essentially? And I went back and sort of studied the role plays. I'm like, oh, there's a pattern here that I just wasn't getting because it wasn't something that I was used to. So having to change my style after 20 years of writing was difficult, but it was a fun sort of difficult.
After being in the XWF for so long, how do you look at the XWF right now compared to the times you've seen it before?
I get asked that quite a bit. It's really hard to compare eras. Back in the day, most of us were hormonal teenagers with nothing but time on our hands. So it was very easy for us to just write and use curse words and just be freaking idiots. Um, I would say the depth of character now is as good as I've seen it. That, like, you don't have a whole lot of like folks that overlap in terms of the stories that they're trying to tell. I think there was quite a bit of that back in the day where and that's no fault of anyone's, because that was just how we were back then. But now, like, you have all these characters, all these role plays that you can read, and they don't they're so different from each other, that I really appreciate sort of the depth of it. You can read 3 role plays and not get bored with it because you're reading a different story each time.
And I've got one more. What's your future in the XWF currently?
Hell if I know. I mean, my 20-year anniversary is coming up in September.
Oh, there we go.
Right around relentless.
That's
Yep.
right around there.
I don't know what I would have planned for that per se, but moving forward, I'm to the point now in my life and my career where I just go, well, I no longer like I'm not chasing titles anymore. I want to work with people that I like and work with people that I know is going to put on a good story. And I want to have good matches or just sort of compelling stuff. So wherever that leads, that's where we go. There's quite a few people that I've never worked with that I love to work with, and they don't necessarily have to have a belt to do it, which is a great position to be in where I'm at.
I really like that answer. And to that, I will throw it to Ned K.
So, Sent, a lot of good
Okay.
questions asked to you already, and I don't want to step too much on Paige's toes because I know you're going to reminisce a lot with him. But I personally have to ask about your experiences as like a tag team wrestler. Um, because you have two pretty high profile, names under your consistent tag team belt, and that's Raven and Ruby.
Hmm.
And I would love to hear your experiences on that, and maybe your the differences between working with them, if you'd like to share.
Well, they couldn't be any different in terms of um, the way in which they're handled. When I was role playing with Raven, um, it, it was it's weird because I felt like I had more of interaction with Jimmy, but at the same time, it was because I was a little more worried in terms of how I was going to write him in role plays. I felt like James had um, this structure and this sort of this way in which he's going to go, and I never wanted to step on his toes. And so I almost let him lead things. Wherever you wanted to put Centurion, that's where you put Centurion. Ruby, very early on, she basically went do whatever, and that's given us a lot of, because I said the same thing to her. Whatever you want to do, we'll roll with, and that's given us a lot of great leeway in terms of our role plays because whenever one of us posts something, we basically sit there and go, okay, well, yes, that's the way we're going with it, and then we would keep moving forward as far as that goes. So it makes things a lot easier when you have a lot of trust in your cooperative partner. Um, the two people that I've really tagged with early on in my career, one of them was Tomoko Hanahara, uh, who's my good friend Keiko, and the other one was Steve Jason. And the trust was built very early. Like we got to know each other very well very early, which allowed us to be like, okay, one of us is going to post a role play. We're going to see what happens, and then from there, we're just going to move on. It's the teams that have to constantly sort of um, go back and is this good? Is that good? Well, let me run this by you. Like sometimes you can get hung up on that too much, and you start to overthink yourself. Um, so that may be a very long-winded question, a very long-winded answer to your question, but um, yes.
No, that's more than perfect. Seeing as you and the Scent character have been around for so long, I would love to hear. You don't want to compare eras, obviously, but I would like to hear at least the differences between how it felt to be like a champion more back in the day. The '08, around the era of, I don't know, '06 through '09, and how it was to be a champion in 2020 and 2019.
All right. Well, let me rack my brain. Uh, so back in like I would say around '07, '08, I think that's when the um, the limits started being added to matches. Prior to that, it was a complete it was the Wild West. Back when I first joined this place in like '01, all the way up until like the mid 2000s, it was absolute insanity. You were just putting essentially you would open up the forums, you would start writing something, and then whatever gets put up there, that's what's put up there, and you would do that twice a day, every day. Um, things started becoming a little more, I would say, focused once we started hitting like '08, '09, because then we started seeing guys. That's where around when Page showed up. That's when Ron Masatome, Team Money was around that point. Star, who was a phenomenal role player, was big at that point. And Steve Jason was I think the guy that everyone was coming in sort of chasing. And then sort of a year or two later, that's when James Raven really started to come into to his own. And what we saw there was a breakdown of there was no longer about how much you can put up, but it was what is the story that you were putting out there. And I would say being a champion then was very difficult because you had a lot of guys that could easily be universal title contenders that were mid card champions. Now it feels like the roles are kind of defined, and I think a lot of that is because of the limits that are set to a lot of the titles. Um, you have your divisions. Now people move up and down within divisions naturally, which is a good thing. Um, it's been it also helps the depth of the company to be able to have certain defined roles and certain defined divisions for people, because you don't want people getting lost in the shuffle. I think back in the day you had a lot of folks that I think had talent but never really caught on because they got swallowed up. And I don't think you get that swallowed up now. So you can have yourself a TV champion or a hard champion that, if they wanted to post more role plays, could be a universal title contender. But at the same time, they could get beat by someone who may not ever be that, and that's good for the Fed.
All right. That's I love that answer. I think you provided a lot of insight into just how you know just how different the landscape has been versus limits and no limits role plays. I'll go ahead and finish off with this one final question. But in your time being here, um, has there ever been a show that stuck out to you as a personal favorite?
As in one show that we ran that I can remember all the matches and stuff on it.
Yes.
I don't want recency bias to be a thing. Um, because I could easily say this year's Snow Job, which I thought was such an incredible show. Um, but I feel like I would be, doing a recency bias. The one that you know is another bias because I helped book it would have been Prophecy Fulfilled in 2009. Um, which was me, and that was Raven and Roxy Nova sort of had our hand in booking that. There were some incredible matches on that card. The match that I was in was me and Hunter Ryan, and the Chris Page will tell you as much as I will that the two of us put no we put the best of each other whenever each other. So that one also sticks out. I also remember, for whatever reason, I remember 2001, and I remember Xmas Extreme. And I don't know why I could go back that far and have that memory. Maybe it's because that was where I won my first title. But I also remember, like, the brand versus Mr. High Flyer STS was on that show. How do I remember that? I have no idea. I can't remember like a match from 3 weeks ago, but I can remember that show.
Wonderful answers. Thanks. Thanks for them.
Hmm.
Sent.
What's up?
How you doing, man? Uh, it's good to talk to you again. I know that we're really looking forward to having you on the show, and guys, as we're talking, if you want to chime in, you're more than welcome to, and feel free to.
Yeah, if this
Um,
just becomes a 2 hour just tug fest, I would love to get it back on track. So, and I know the three others in this chat could are better at doing that than the two of us are.
Well, I have a question. You mentioned a name that there's a good many of us we've heard. We've just never read his work. You said Steve Jason.
Yes.
How would you compare Steve Jason to anybody in the XWF today, so we can kind of get a grasp or feel of what his material was like?
Steve Jason was the greatest writer that I've ever worked with. So now, keep in mind that was back in the day. How he would write now, how he would compare now, would be difficult. But if I had to make a comparison to today's time, it would be I would say it would be similar to Robert Maine in the sense of someone who consistently put out very good work, but it was also very grounded work. Um, it was like if you read a Robert Maine role play, you could like I love that dude to death, and I love his writing. And what I love most about it is Robert Maine writes similar to how I write, only he's so much better at it than I am. That's the way that I felt with Steve Jason. Was there wasn't anything spectacular about his character, but the things that he would say, but he made you so invested in his work and in his writing. James Raven, I think, is the exact same way. And going way back, the brand was the same way. That's why those guys are, when you hear like the best of all time, those three are mentioned. They had a very similar style, which is it's grounded in a lot of it's grounded in reality. A lot of it is basic stuff, but the way in which they write it made you so connected to them, and it made you like want to continue to read their stories. Um, and I get that same feeling these days when I read like Robert Maine. Like he's the one that really sticks out in my mind. That does a very similar thing.
You guys got anybody got anything else?
I got like the most important question of the entire podcast.
Let's hear it.
Sent.
Mm.
Fuck Mary Kill. CCP, Bourbon, and TK.
Well, I'm marrying Paige. That's that. Like I don't even have to think about that one. Um, I have to fuck one of you guys.
That's the rules.
Guess so.
Them's the rules.
I guess I'm fucking Bourbon then.
Huh.
I'll take it. Like this is the
I think
best
you're
one.
doing. You're.
Bourbon wins on a technicality.
And then that means you're doing what to TK?
Oh, he's dead.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that one I knew. Like I could have answered that one first. The question was whether or not I could have two kills.
Well, let's get into this shit, man. Like, I mean, like I was saying at the top of the show, we go back a long way.
Mhm.
I believe you were talking earlier about our paths really crossing in 2011 with the Centurion character. Before we get there, like you were talking earlier about how really it was the Wild Wild West back in your early days. What championships, were you able to procure back then? Excuse me, before our paths crossed.
Um, so I won the Canadian title. That was my first belt in,
Hmm.
and that would become a staple of my. The first time I won it was there wasn't it was like everything else. There was no limits. You just went out and go balls to the wall. And I beat a guy. The character's name was Eric Furious, but he was run by someone else. I want to say it was Justin Greenwood or something, like somebody who actually had um like a decent tenure within the company, because I remember winning it and everyone goes, "Holy shit, really?" Like like people were so shocked that I won the belt the first time because I beat this guy that was like a secondary character like a really big name role player. Um, I won a tag belt a couple times, like when I won with Tomoko. That was I think '04, something like that. But then once the Canadian title came back and started, that was the first belt that had limit. Everything else was sort of unlimited, but we had one role play for a title defense for the Canadian title. That was the rules. Once that was established, that was my division. I made a home there, and I won that thing 8 times in the course of my career. because I was so much better at being able to tell one story than I was at being able to tell multiple stories within several role plays. Um,
Sure.
yeah. So, but that's sort of where my career started. There was a couple of extreme titles thrown in there somewhere.
And then we get to where our paths cross with WGWF. We'll talk a little bit about Jocelyn Camden. Uh, First of all, what led you to? Did you leave the XWF for the WGWF, or was you on a break and just kind of came back to the WGWF through the Brothers Ryans?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I believe I was doing right at the very beginning. I think I was doing both. Um, but that didn't last very long. If I remember correctly, it wasn't long after WWF took off that's when the XWF kind of closed for a little bit. Um, and so that kind of ended my run. And then when XWF reopened, when it first reopened, and we were all over in WGWF, the old guys weren't allowed back in. Like there was a policy of if you were like an older wrestler, if you were a legend, you weren't allowed to be there. So that my mind was already made up for me. I couldn't even come back. So I was in WGWF because I think because I followed the brothers Ryans over. Um, I wanted to do something as a side character, and the side character became my main character because all the turmoil that was happening over in XWF at the time made me change my direction.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, we did some things as far as the WGWF was concerned. You came in and kind of rose through the ranks with Jocelyn Camden. Even I want to say within your first 3 months, I think you had picked up the IC title.
Yes, that sounds correct.
I want to say that that's what happened, and we had a lot of really good talent in the WCWF, and it kind of ranged. Like the Jocelyn Camden character was a staple for years, uh, and was kind of like to put it in perspective, was kind of like the she was that character that didn't need a belt, and we could do a program around her, and it'd be about that, and it would always turn into some really good shit. Uh, Going back to those days, though, what were some of your favorite stories and some of your favorite angles that we were able to pull off?
Boy, so um, I got my IC title by beating Hunter Ryan, which I think is just was apropos because that he was someone that I always faced in XWF as well for belts to be able to take the belt off of him. I think I'm wrong in that actually. Now that I think about it, I
It
think
was
I took the
Brian Cady. I think it was Brian
no,
Cady.
it was Seth Stevens.
Was it? Like
Yeah,
very well could have been. Very well
yeah.
could have been.
I took the belt off. I won my first world title by beating Hunter Ryan. That's where I'm getting that confused.
Ah, gotcha.
Um, so, but being able to work with him so often after the run that we had in the XWF, I thought was great. Um, the stuff with this is gonna get really start get complicated. But bringing in Alyssa Farrow and having her
Hmm.
being a completely separate character from Camden, like having two completely opposite paths was was a ton of fun. But I think the most fun really that I had was working with my friend Carrie, who had a character named Isabel Dehardine. Um,
Yep.
and like we went back, we were friends in high school. She was gone from the game for a very long time. For however reason it came to be, I was able to convince her to come back and just do like at the time it was supposed to be a short term run. That just caught on. Um, like her character caught on. It was the perfect foil for Camden. Um, and so that was, and then it would be remiss to not put in the 60-minute Iron Man Hell in a Cell match with Jocelyn Camden and Chris Page.
That was fun. That was an interesting one. There was I want to go back to Isabel Desjardins because I haven't heard that name in such a long time. And Carrie was she was an incredible writer, and her delivery within her promos was at sometimes it was blistering. I want to say that didn't that program make one of the Wrestle Wars main events?
Yes. So how this worked was when she came in, she was immediately a heel, right? Because she did that, like, that communist sympathizer gimmick, right? Which clashed with Camden sort of more at the time. She was one of the top dogs. She was more high society. It just sort of worked. Then after about a year of feuding, Camden and Isabel became tag team partners. That was the Birds of Prey. That was when
Mhm.
we were tag champions and everything else. And then after the the what was the Royal Rumble called? Like the Wrestle Rumble, something like that.
The
West
West Coast
West
Rumble.
Rumble, where Isabel won the West Coast Rumble, and I think Camden won the world title in that same pay per view. Camden turned heel on Isabel, which was the big shock because Camden had never been a heel before, and then that was the main event of Wrestle War.
That was a really good story. As far as how all that played out, and just the entire layout of it was really rock solid. I mean, we did some really good shit back then. The program that we did do with CCP and Camden, I thought was at the time it was almost red hot. Am I wrong?
Oh, it was. Well, remember how we got there was at the time. I think you as CCP didn't really want to get back involved, right? Because you were running
Yeah.
the show. But after Camden won the belt, she was going through this tear where not only was she beating the top guys, but she had beat a lot of like returning legends. So she had beaten Dean James, Paul Frost, MDK. And so it was like, okay, I had dispatched of all these folks that were all Hall of Famers. There's only one Hall of Famer left that I really want to take care of, and that's the big dog himself. And that's when all the trash talking to CCP started happening.
So essentially, Camden, and yes, I remember that now. You had went through all the Hall of Famers, um, and you picked a fight with me, and we went to Yankee Stadium.
Yep.
I think that's where that one took place. And just out of sheer curiosity, how did that work out for you?
I think it was a draw.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well,
We'll definitely call it a draw. But the Jocelyn Camden character had such an evolution over. I mean, I want to say it was like 3 years. I remember specifically on like my 400th retirement tour that we ran it back, and the result was completely different, and Jocelyn Camden got that big win that she was looking for, I don't know, 6 or 7 months prior.
right. Yeah. It was interesting because there was this a clear sort of I hate to say it this way, but there was a kind of a dip in the depth of the roster right around the time when I was really getting. I mean, hell, Nick Ryan was a world champion. Let's be honest.
For about 4 months. So
Yeah,
if that tells you anything, yeah, that
so
was
I mean,
right before we started blowing up.
yeah. So let's keep it in perspective. And what it wasn't like it was this entire just sprint to the finish with all these folks. But I got hot, right, and then I ended up holding the belt. I held the belt for like 5 months, something like that, 4 or 5 months. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
decent amount of time. After I had dropped it to somebody, I don't remember who it was. After I had dropped it, there was like this huge influx of folks. It was like there was like Star showed up and Team Money and Blizzard, and like all these folks that were universal title guys from the XWF. It's almost like they, when the place shut down, they all fluctuated over the WWF, and suddenly that picture became a lot cloudier because now you had folks who were coming in off of being able to write 20,000 words on a consistent basis, and it's all quality stuff. Now they're in the mix, and I don't have to tell you my history with Blizzard, so I had to take a bit of a back seat in the middle there. And then at the end, it was like, okay, old guard kind of left, new guard hasn't arrived yet. Camden's here again. It was this weird roller coaster when I was there.
But it was fun. It was like we that was a very wild ride. So when you can like tell the long term story, which that's something that you've always been really really good at. Uh, it baffles my mind. I give the Scent character a lot of shit in character because it's easy to do. Uh, but in reality, the man behind the character and behind all the writing, it's insane to me that there's a handful of people that have been doing this almost as long as I have. To see the evolution, because like you touched on it earlier with Centurion, that character is pretty much the same character now versus what he was in 2003. There's very few people that have that kind of longevity writing that particular character. Um, what kind of challenges have you had, keeping the Centurion character, relevant? You were talking earlier how he hasn't really, kind of adapted to uh the or well, that's the
He
wrong
wasn't he
word to
wasn't a
use.
trend chaser.
Yes.
Um, yeah, for me, it was always about keeping it real.
Mhm.
So when you create a character that's a Superman and he gets knocked down, it's really hard to then write the next chapter of that story. Centurion was never Superman. He always got knocked down. He got old and he got hurt and he got a lot of things. And it made it almost easier to be able to uh, evolve that character and grow with it because you can write long term stories about it. The last 2 years has been nothing but um, basically coming back. Sent's old now, but he's got a lot more to prove, and he squandered all the goodwill that he had, and now he's got to prove it to himself. Like that's how you, like, to me, that's how you do it. You take something, you ground it into reality, and you roll with the punches. Don't make yourself try to be, bigger or better than the game you're in, because the moment that you get a hit, it's really hard to then, turn around and be, oh well, I may have lost, but I'm still the greatest of all time. Give yourself some self doubt, because writing a character that has some self doubt opens up a lot of avenues.
Right, right, right. I'm right there with you. Like the CCP character is very much a realistic to everyday life kind of guy. When you get into well, let's fast forward now to like some modern day, because I came back in 2019, and I think you were here role playing when I came back when back at that War Games pay per view. Is that right?
Yeah, you were among the group of folks that decided to, basically jump on my balls. I was going to have this great. It's going to be this great character ride. Centurion. Here's the old legend coming back for this great ride. Oh yeah, by the way, Fuzz is also going to join. Oh, and here comes CCP. He's going to join. Oh, and CCP is going to bring in Famine of the Vile too. Oh yeah. By the way, MDK is going to take a stop. Like what the hell? Come on! Like you guys couldn't let me have that.
Well, you know how that happened, right? Like I was hit up by Raven,
I
and
know
you know there.
because of the XX thing.
Well, yeah, but that took place way after the fact. They were lining up war games, and the XX stuff was a part of it. And then he was like, "Hey, do you want to do this war games match? You have experience, blah 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 blah." Well, who's it against? It'll be against the Universal Champion. Okay. Do I get to pick my own team? And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, cool." Um, when's the date? And he gave me the date, and I was like, "All right, I'll do it." And I got back with him and told him that, kind of who I had lined up, and the rest was history. You were actually in that War Games match. Now that I think about it, you
Yep.
were involved in that. When did you come back to the XWF before? Or did you come back like right before then, or
It was March Madness 2019.
so literally right before? Okay.
Yes.
Within a cycle, you're back in the. Oh wow, yeah, I'd have felt shit on too, bro. I'm sorry about
Yeah.
that.
Because like I hadn't been on the boards in forever, and then Raven hit me up. You want to do this XX thing? He at the time he and Theo were starting to get more of an administrative role in the company.
Mhm.
The previous owner was kind of phasing himself out, so he's like, things are going to be a little bit different. Do you want to take a look and see what we're doing? Blah blah blah. And then that's when Jack Nation was retiring. And Jack Nation and I, like, we always had a good banter, but we never faced each other. Not that I remember, at least not in XWF. And so I was like, well, what the hell? I'll give it one more shot, and I'll face Jack Nation on his retirement match and see what the hell happens. The role play I put out, like, flowed so well for me that I was like, I can actually do this again. And I had visions in my mind of the character, like all these young folks that are fighting for these belts, and here's this old guy coming back kind of out of nowhere, beaten down, and he wants to give it one more shot. The show, literally the show that I have my first match back, fucking Fuzz shows up, kind of takes all the wind out of my goddamn sails. And now he wonders why I hate the prick. Like, come on, why do you think? It was good because you've been stealing my fucking thunder for 20 goddamn years.
Oh, he's laughing his ass off right now as he hears this, right?
I know. Oh, he loves it. The
Well,
only thing Fuzz, the only thing Fuzz loves more than himself winning is me being in pain.
you get back in the mix, and it's not too long before you're in the Heart title situation. Um, First, like that, your title run with the Heart title was impressive as fuck. Let me be one of the first to say that. And I know that the Heart Championship is very, very near and dear to Bobby Bourbon. So Bobby, if you're there, I'd like for you to pop in and let's talk about, since really, really, I mean, damn near historic run with that championship.
Yeah, it was a good run. I mean, I remember I came back into the Fed. I was on a little hiatus, and I came back in a little after XX.
Mhm.
And I want to say the first time I faced Cent when he had the Heart was at Christmas time of 2019.
Yeah, it was December of 2019.
Yeah, and yeah, he was just rolling with the title. I mean, he was facing people. I mean, it was a good reign on his behalf. I mean, I'd rather hear him talk about it, but I was impressed by it. I faced him a couple of times. Um, and then, after he lost the title, I picked it up in August and ran with it for a little bit. And hopefully I gave it some credit, but I didn't hold it as long as he did.
Let's talk about it, Sent. So you set your eyes on the Heart Championship. So what drew you to that once we got through that War Game situation?
Well, so to rewind it a little bit, but my the first time that I actually fought for the belt was immediately after War Games. Um, I faced Tony Santos in an episode of Warfare, and I got beat. Um, the Hart title I had never won before, despite the fact that it was one of the belts that had the longest lineage within the company. I just had never won it. And so after Santos, like it wasn't my goal to be a champion again. Like that wasn't why I came back. But after Santos beat me, I kind of had that thought in my mind of, okay, I'm doing pretty well. I know that I'm a decent writer and that I'm writing at a good pace again. So let's make this an actual goal. Um, couple of months went by. We ended up having to build towards XX, which sort of stopped everything because that everything was sort of put on hold. And then it was like I think it was the week after XX that I had my number one contenders match for that belt again.
Let's go to XX real quick. Who were you on the card with there? I forgot.
It was me and Maverick.
That's right.
And we were facing Shane Carver and Kid Money.
Okay, we'll bypass that. Didn't you guys win?
No.
Yes, you did. Yeah, you did. So you get into.
But let me also say part of that's because Maverick hadn't role played in 15 fucking years, and so like he just didn't remember what he was doing. And Kid Money, that motherfucker, like he was talking about, oh, I don't know what am I supposed to do? It's been so much like that asshole always has shit up his sleeve. Okay, so he knew exactly what he was doing. It's almost like he loved. Kid Money is another one historically that loved to just beat me down. So he was looking forward to kicking my ass.
You get your number one contendership match. You go into the Hart Championship. Now, who did you dethrone for that?
Tony Santos.
So the return match, you take down Tony Santos,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start on this. I mean, it was a well-defined run as Hart champion. So talk to me about that. Talk me through it. What was you thinking as you started racking up these defenses, and at what point did you kind of put your eye on that prize of could probably be the longest reigning Hart champion?
Once I got to be about 2 or 3 months in, I would say, um, the thought then started creeping in of how long can I hold this thing to be, because I my career is known for a lot of things, like a lot of its longevity and the fact I've got a ton of wins, but I don't have that one signature thing you can point to, like, oh, he did that. You know what I mean? Like it's always just sort of like he's been here for a really long fucking time. But if I could have been the longest reigning Hart champion, like that would have been like this nice little bow sort of on my career. And I knew that the number was long. It was like 280 days that Robert Main had. And I got to about day 100, and I was like, I think this is a possible thing that I can do. But I didn't. I also knew though that I could have done it if I had sort of picked and choosed opponents that I knew that I could beat, and that wasn't my intention. I wanted to come back till I could face the newer group of folks I never faced before.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever was going to happen was going to happen as far as that goes, and that's how I ran into Bobby and TK and Big D was part of that run too. Just kind of keeping it open like that. Vita Valentine, that was a fun. I almost forgot about her. I almost forgot about her because I go way back with her handler, and he's an. But it was still a fun show. That was that match where Centurion had to wear a fucking dress. Thanks a lot again, Fuzz, you dick.
You get to you're running through this reign as Hart champion. At what point in time did it come to an end? And when it came to an end, how did you feel about that?
I was heartbroken. I came to an end.
The hired gun, right?
The hired gun. Yep. And He wasn't set up to be a champion. Because he dropped the belt like 2 weeks later. He just wanted to beat me. And now that I know who the hired gun was and who the handler was, I understand because that's what he fucking does. Is he just likes to beat me up. Um, but I honestly I was upset. That's not the way I wanted to go. Um, my hope was if it was gonna happen and I wasn't gonna get the reign, I was hoping maybe I would lose it to like an up and comer at a pay per view to make it a big deal. Like if I would have lost it to Ned K at Leap of Faith, for example, I thought that would have been a better story. Um, but that's not how the chips fell.
You got through that run as Heart Champion, and is this about the time where the GCWA would come into play?
The UGWC.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm stoned, and it's not a Fed that
Yeah.
I write for.
So right after I lost the belt was when signups for the WrestleStock happened. Um, so I was directionless. I had this opportunity at the time. That was when a lot of other folks were starting to join the other feds and kind of spreading their wings a little bit. So I'm like, well, hell, I might as well give it a shot too. So that's when that, yeah, we're like at the same time, I would say.
You come back now. I want to go back to Leap of Faith last year. Was Ruby and Centurion
Nope,
taking on?
that was at Relentless.
Was it Relentless? Sorry, Relentless. Sorry, that's what I
Leap of
meant to
Faith,
say.
me and Warstein for the title.
All right. So a little ahead of myself. I want to go to Leap of Faith with you and Warstein, because you two guys have a good history with each other and a great out of character rapport with each other. If you didn't, you wouldn't be working with each other and have such great chemistry. Um, that match was kind of like as far as Sent's concerned, was that his last hurrah, because you put a lot into it, and I know that that match meant a lot, even though the Noah Jackson's daddy came out on top. How did it feel to have that limelight and have that spotlight with the Centurion character for the Universal Championship at one of the big shows of the year?
Yeah, it certainly wasn't what I was expecting. Like even when I was early in my Heart title reign, I did not expect to ever be fighting. I thought that chapter of my life was gone. It wasn't until like I think Engineer got halfway through his reign and he started asking me about whether or not I wanted to face him. And then Fuzz took the belt and he was asking me. So apparently people like wanted to face me, which was a bit of a shock to me. Um, but yeah, it
Why
was
would
the
you
line
time out? Why would you say it's a shock?
because I, I I always felt like I wasn't the top guy or one of the guys the top guy wanted to face. I always thought I was the almost the gatekeeper to the stars type of character. You got through Centurion to then get to the top. Um, so when Engineer and Fuzz were at the top, I didn't think that they would be pointing to me, especially when at the time you still had Robert Maine and you still had Drew Argyle and you still had all these other guys that were there that could have easily filled that spot. Um, for them to be like, no, I want to face Cent was a bit of a surprise to me.
It shouldn't have been a surprise, man. It's because reality is this: is if anybody knows you, they know that you're going to show up regardless of what the circumstance or what the match is. As a champion, if you've been champion, you want to work with people who will show up and put the work in to make the angle and sell the angle. Which I thought you guys did a pretty good job, even though I shit all over it in character. Out of character, like the inside CCP was a little giddy because I don't. That was the first time that I think that I'd seen you guys square off. for the uni. Now, I did see you guys square off in a captain's match, and I saw you guys at the War Games prior to, but not one-on-one, which I thought that you guys told a good story, and that the match was really well done, and it made both characters look phenomenal. Then we got to Relentless. What possessed you and Rubes to try their hand at Cataclysm?
Honestly, part of it was seeing whether or not we would be able to mesh well as a tag team. We had just gotten together at that point, and we had not tagged together. We had paths that were parallel but not intersecting. So we were like, we want to give this a shot. And the other part of it was, at the time, there wasn't a lot of tag teams out there. This was before the No Good Bastards got together, and before Doc came back, and like they were just like Cataclysm was running through teams because there just wasn't enough of them left. And so Ruby and I were like, well, we want a tag match, and I think it was like Thea or someone was like, well, how about you just face the champions? Okay, and I believe it was my first match in XWF since the Universal title match, and it was main event night 2 of Relentless. I was like, well, hell,
Hmm?
and you throw us in there against Robert Maine and Chris Page. Have a blast, you know? I think we pretty much knew going in that unless you guys were looking to drop the titles, we weren't going to win. But it was it was a good beginning chapter to our story, and then B, it was a very good way of showing us out of character how we can mesh well together.
Well, I think personally that you guys did way better than I know you did better than what Robert was expecting. Ruby kind of showed up and showed out right there, and that was the match that I was like I said something to Thea or Vinny actually because I know that Ruby is on Anarchy. It hit up Vinny and I was like, why is she not? And nothing against Anarchy, but why is she not competing for singles championships? And
Right,
that
and
was when
that
he
was
kind of like,
yeah. I had that conversation with her right around that same time because I think she had just dropped the Anarchy title after like an incredible reign with it. And I said the same thing to her. I was like, you could always fight for one of these higher belts. But she never had the interest in being like a world champion or whatever. The only way she would be competing on these other shows like that is if she had someone to work with. And to be able to, I guess the ability to work with me kind of sparked her interest a little bit more.
I made for a hell of a team, and even to this day, I'm fairly certain you've probably listened to the podcast, and we've talked about Scent Ruby combination. Something that I think this is just a personal thing. I really feel like if Scent and Ruby were to pick up the tag titles and take them to Anarchy and make people come and try and take them from the Anarchy show, that would be like an incredible little storyline. Oh, because the facade is that Anarchy is the lower tier show, but to have those titles there or any major championship doesn't necessarily have to be the tag title. It could be any the Heart title or the TV title or something like that. I think that would make for a little interesting dynamic, and I think Ruby would be like the little perfect character to do something like that with. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, absolutely. That is something that we would absolutely do. Like putting Scent and Ruby together in the first place is fucking weird on its own. You give the two of them tag titles, and like I could just imagine our creative process is just firing on all cylinders at that point.
It's you two together can be very dangerous as a combination. I think that you guys have that the potential is there. I th- I think we'll take the time now. If you don't know, like I want to go ahead and throw this out there that uh, Ruby and Centurion are going to be challenging for the tag titles at Dolly Waters' event, Coreytopia. Um, is this the? Do you think this is the night where Rubes and Cent can put it together and take those titles?
No. If I may, me and TK knew that we had to make a defense, and there's no point in winning the tag team championships if you're not going to actually use them, and progress the storyline of that title. So we knew we were going to be facing, or there was going to be a championship match at the pay-per-view, but in the interim, there has to be one. So me and TK were like, well, who are we going to face? I don't know. Like, so I hit up Theo and like, yeah, we're going to defend our belts. Okay, who are you going to face? I don't know, because the idea was, well, we'll defend them at like the same night as Turmoil, but well, all the tag teams are booked then. So I reached out and I hit up Senate and I was like, so you want a shot at the tag championships? Because I saw he signed up to be booked at the Dolly Waters show. So yeah, I wouldn't say you were handpicked, but yeah, we went with we wanted to face Scent and Ruby, mostly because you guys do have talent. You guys are a good team, both individually as writers and when you work together, it's pretty strong. So I think I'm looking forward to having a good time. Hopefully, we deliver some material that entertains enough people. TK, do you have any thoughts?
Yes. Cent, you're going down. You're going down.
All right. Well, I'm glad you contributed to this conversation, PK, like you normally do. Um, I will say this: it's kind of funny because I was hit up about, do you want to do the tag title match, and that's when I hit up Ruby. I was like, listen, we asked if we want to do this opportunity, and she literally said like, well, they've been asking about us on the podcast, so I guess we're going to have to give it a shot. So we've been listening. And we know that the at least right now I don't know uh if it's a really big, like, oh my god, you guys are great situation, or if it's a more curiosity thing because we've only been teaming, like we only tagged together twice. And so the curiosity aspect is there. Um, but we're gonna hopefully deliver some high quality stuff. It's going to be flippin' great, as Ruby would say.
Yeah, I look forward to some high octane role plays between all four of us. I think that with Ruby's style meshing with Scent up against the No Good Bastards, there's going to be an interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, because Ruby can't even say the name of your tag team.
Right.
So I don't
I
I
didn't
don't know
even think about that, honestly.
how she's gonna manage that.
Well, I mean, how amped up are you for it, man? Like, I know that the big thing, right, is trying to get the resurgence in that tag team division, and this could be another one of those pivotal matches. Um, Tag division's been represented really well. If you go back to Relentless last year, because with all due respect, Rubes and Cent were our toughest challenge until we got to Thad and Doc. But that match was a barn burner. The match at High Stakes with Doc and Thad and Cataclysm and the title changing was a really good match. You had Snow Job, the triple threat tag match with Continuum, the No Good Bastards, and the Descendants, and March Madness, the run back with them No Good Bastards and Continuum. Now we have the opportunity to see another, what I think would be a pretty groundbreaking match for the division. It only does good things for the division in general.
Yeah, there's that aspect of it. Part of me is really excited for the opportunity because I've been primarily doing singles work since my return, and so this is I really that since Ruby and I got together, it's kind of like my first really big opportunity to be able to do the tag stuff again. But the other part of me is kind of nervous because um, for Centurion, it doesn't matter really. Like if what's another loss? You know, I have a few of them. I could always put them under my belt. But Ruby's young, and the character is pretty new, and I don't know the writer's age particular, but I think they're, I would assume, younger than I am because I'm old as shit. Um, and so I'm more concerned about, yeah, I'm more going into it with the passion of winning, not so much for myself, but for her. If that's the way of putting it. It's less of a, nervousness of am I going to win, and more of a nervousness of am I going to be able to do enough to allow her to win.
It's going to be. I'm not to beat a dead horse, but I think it's going to be a great fucking match. Ned, are you still there, brother? If so, what are your thoughts on the upcoming Centurion Ruby, the No Good Bastards deal?
It's interesting because first off, obviously Ruby's not going to be able to refer to them by name. That's fun, but I think she's probably just going to call them like them no good buttheads or something. But
I love that.
but on top of that, what you have here is really kind of an interesting dichotomy because one of the things Ruby does very well and the Bastards do really well, which paid paid off in their uh, title challenge, when they won them, is kind of skit-based role plays, if that makes sense. Having a parody or a specific style that you want to emulate or riff on. Ruby's really good at that. Rubio's is still pretty famous to this day just because it was such a good take on a cereal commercial. Um, Ruby is killer at those, but the Bastards have proven that they're great at that too. Scent is going to provide a really intriguing kind of dynamic there because of his more grounded nature, even when writing with a character like Ruby, who's obviously going to be, the super hero, obviously going to be fighting crime. And Scent is, like kind of a rich guy, a legend. He's a man, and
He's old. You can say old.
he's old. He's bold. Um, so no, I think it's going to be a lot of fun just because the kinds of dramatic or potentially just interesting material that you can get from Ruby and Scent are going to be a lot different from the kind of material that the Bastards thrive at. While I don't think any style is better by any means, it is going to be a very fun slasher.
Yeah, to kind of simplify that in a way, because as you were saying it, it made sense in my head where the Bastards kind of are, um, they're very similar in terms of their personalities, whereas Centurion and Ruby are not similar. So it's almost going to be the situation where, um, uh, TK and Robbie can kind of build on each other, whereas Ruby and Set have to bounce off each other. That's gonna be the difference there.
For sure. Sure. Um, is there anything you wanna add, Paige?
I want to shift into everything else that's going on in the Fed right now. What are your eyes on, man? What are you watching? What's got your interest peaked?
Well, so I was listening to the post um, March Madness podcast you guys put up, for as chaotic as that was. And you had Betsy Granger on for a little bit, and
Hmm?
and Paige, you and I go back with Heather years, and you said something that I was going to echo. And in fact, like when you said it, I was thinking it right before you said it, which was, this is the best work I've ever seen Betsy put out like ever in her career, and she's been doing this for so long. Um, and to me, like I'm looking at you've got to really like defined. I think upper card right now. You've got Demos, you've got Page, you've got Robert Maine, but you've got this next group. I guess this sort of like shooting star title section of folks with Betsy and Lycana. Um, I would kind of put Jenny Mist in there too. That are so good that we're just sort of waiting for. It's not a matter of the if, it's the when. Like, when is that big step going to be? When are we going to see a pay per view headlined by one of those folks? Which is exciting because sometimes you get kind of jaded with the characters and the role plays. You see certain people sort of headlining all the time, and the fact that we've got some of this talent that's relatively new. I mean, I know Heather's not new in writing, but her character's pretty new. Lycana, I don't know, I don't think I've ever worked with her before. Um, and Jenny Mist is new to me. I know she's not new to the XWF in general, but she's new to me. And then I'll throw RL Edgar in there. I'll throw Dead K in there. I'll throw a couple other people in there that have done just this really just fantastic job. Where we're going to have a situation where we're going to have the next up mentality, and it's going to be seamless. Um,
I
and
agree. I think that this is a very exciting time for the XWF as a Fed, uh, because of the the crop of talent that's here, tapped and untapped. Like the sky is really the limit. What I think is amazing is how guys like you and guys like me and guys like Doc and we can do our part all day, every day to TV wise to help get these characters over on television. Because again, you've worked with me for years. I have two sides. I've got my role play side and I've got my TV side. It's gotta make sense on TV, uh, for
right,
any character to be looked at as a legitimate threat, and you have to build them right. We have that opportunity now in the XWF that I don't think has been here in a while.
right, and any of these folks that if say next week we need a challenger for the universal title, and you could pick any of those folks and you would make sense. Like the story's there. Um, and not only is the story there and it would make sense, but they would give it a legitimate challenge.
Hmm?
And that's the fun part of it. Now I started with Betsy Granger only because I'm a homer in terms of that. Um, because I remember when Heather first sort of showed up in the XWF, and it was, I mean, she was just like everybody else. It was a sort of coming in, trying to get your feet among you. But what's interesting about her and her evolution within the e-fitting world is the three people that she's worked with the most, like as far as I believe love interest wise. Maybe I'm wrong in that sense, but I do know that the three people that she's worked in terms of like partnering with were Steve Jason, Chris Page, and James Raven. I mean, how the hell do you manage to if you can study under those three, eventually you're going to make it pretty high up there.
Yeah, I was one of the few who had a romantic interest with Heather when she was Heather Hallowell, before Betsy Granger came into the equation. But you were correct. This is the hottest I think I've seen her, uh, as far as role play. Now, the only other time that I can remember her remotely coming close to where she's at right now is when she and Star had that thing in the WGWF.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Was when she was on top over there, um, it was really good. But I never felt like I felt like she was putting in good work, but I think this is even more creative if they're doing it.
Yes. Oh no, for sure, for sure. And if anybody knows the work and knows the writer and have seen the writing now versus back then, I mean that's a no brainer. It's a whole different ball game with her, and she can go as far as she wants to go right now in the XWF, as far as I'm concerned, and from what I see.
Yeah, I agree. On the flip side of that, is Alias. I just wanted to take this chance to take the shit on Lee Stone a little.
Why you want to shit on Lee, man? He's a good friend of the show.
Because he's Lee Stone. Honestly, if I could talk some shit, but I wouldn't know where to go with it. Were you around during the Everyone Fears Lee Stone era?
I don't think so.
There was a period of time there where Lee Stone was the best writer in the Fed. Um it wasn't a long period, and he'll even tell you that it wasn't a long period of time, but there was a time when he was absolutely unbeatable. And so now that he's alias and he isn't his main character anymore, I will take any opportunity I can to shit on him because I could never beat him back then.
What makes you think you can beat him now?
I'm not gonna try. I'm just gonna shit on him.
You're throwing down fighting words. So now we're gonna have to see an Alias Centurion match.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
We can do it. You might end up being disappointed.
I don't think there's any outcome that would be disappointing. Oh,
I
I
think
mean,
you know what that outcome's going to end up being. I don't know if I've got the chops to keep up with Lee Stone.
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm hoping he gets that case because that'll give me an opportunity. Give me and him an opportunity. Because I don't think
That would be fun.
we don't think we've. I know I've never. I don't think I've ever done anything with him. But I've got my eye on it, and I'm watching intently. I think that's gonna when that happens, it's gonna be. It could be a pretty big thing. I think with those two characters specifically, they're future uni champions in my eyes. It's just one of those situations. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Um, we had a interesting weekend here in the XWF. We have our Savage results. So, Bobby Bourbon, let me kick things over to you for Saturday night Savage.
All right. So we go into Savage. Our first match, surprisingly, is going to be the Universal Championship match. We have Chris Page facing down Demos. You guys have been burning down the boards with material, like just old school amount of role plays on behalf of both you guys, and just strong work, putting in that much work. Um, Page goes over Demos. And then Paige, why don't you tell us about your experience through this match? And why don't you go into the post match, everything that happens there too?
Well, you have to go back to CCP, in character made a point that if he's not going on last and he's defending the Universal Championship, he's going to go on first. So King Doc made his appearance, his royal entrance, and Chris Page's character immediately interrupted. Came to the ring, brief little promo, calling out Demos. We're going to do this now. Interesting fun fact is Demos is coming to the ring. He's coming to the ring with Dean Rose, and Dean Rose lays an attack on Demos before the match and kind of throws him into the ring to Page, and we're off to the races. The match itself is, I thought it was, I wrote it really well. I thought there was a lot of back and forth. I always go into a match thinking under the impression of like the Ric Flair aspect when I'm a heel. Like the job you pay to see the heel get his ass whipped. It was pretty even back and forth, but I really think that the Demos character shines a little bit here. I had Andre Dixon at ringside. There was some shenanigans, which brought out RL Edgar to corner Demos. Little teases here and there with some interactions. At the end of the day, though, the referee takes a bump. Dixon gets the Universal Championship, kind of drops it in the corner before he can get in the ring. RL gets involved. There's an exchange between the two. Demos gets hit with a low blow. Page follows that up with a belt shot to the face, takes the cover. Referee's groggy, comes to, makes the count 1, 2, 3. CCP's retained the championship. Post match, RL is sliding in the ring to check on Demos, and Dixon and Page take liberties with RL. He's now next in line and now public enemy number one. In the midst of this attack, Robert Main and Drew Archill show up through the crowd, wielding baseball bats. And we all know the symbolics of the baseball bat. TK knows better than anybody else, right?
Yeah, the baseball bat's significant because he took one to the back of the skull.
I guess not. Say that to say, as soon as Archill and Maine make it to the ring, they're goozled by them no good bastards and Miss Fury. Ultimately, it looks like both Maine and Archill are going to have their skulls cracked by CCP and Thunder Knuckles with baseball bats. King Doc stops it, just basically just enough, and he has seen enough, basically. So CCP and Bob Elite drop what they're doing, and they leave Robert Main and Drew Archill laid out. And the shot ends with CCP pulling his elite members of Bob in and basically just looking into the camera and telling the world to follow that. Centurion, and give me your thoughts on Demos and Chris Page.
So when Demos first showed up, he was a house on fire, right? I was incredibly impressed with him. And it was like, what was it, 2 months in, he was facing Sarah Lackland for the belt. And I always get concerned when someone gets a belt, like a title shot, that quickly, because there was always opportunity that they could lose and get sort of like down on the game, and they get burnt out, and they kind of fizzle away. I've really enjoyed the work that Demos has been putting up since then. I feel like it's been a great evolution of his character. Um, but the thing with Chris Page is, if he wants to burn you, he'll burn you. I know that as well as anybody, that once he turns that hat backwards and goes all over the top on you, he could start really laying some shots in on you, and you certainly did that this week. The last 2 weeks, like I should say.
Mr. Bourbon.
So that's going to carry us on to the next match. We have Sill versus Predator and Slash Hopkins. Sill winds up taking that match. And then we move on. We have Ash Quinn going over Owlman.
Can we talk about Owlman for a second? Because
yeah.
I mean, I know that he. Bear in mind, obviously the boards have been up and down, and the only role play I saw from him was his first one, so I'm not really sure if a second one went up from him. But I was impressed with his first role play.
Yeah, Owlman, there was a lot of intrigue about him. Definitely a Batman knockoff, but he's a lot of fun to read. And you can tell whoever was writing him was having a good time with it.
Am I the only one that sees an Owlman Miss Fury thing that could be a little interesting?
Sure could.
Owlman, Ruby, Miss Fury, yeah.
Ruby was going to be my my next, suggestion when it comes to a match with Owlman. I mean, it kind of has to happen eventually. Superheroes battle each other how fucking often?
Rarely.
Centurion, what was your take on all that?
Well, first of all, I can tell you with 100% certainty, I am not Owlman. I don't care what any of the rumors might have you say.
Rumor and innuendo is your owl man.
Yeah, the Centurion is not Owlman 100%. The Owlman thing is fun. I would love to see where that goes. But more importantly, I feel happy for Ash Quinn. She was someone who needed a win, and the Owlman character I think is interesting enough as it is. A win or a loss, I don't think affects him at all. But for Ash Quinn, this is a good opportunity to sort of press the reset button. Get the all left hand stuff behind you. You can start moving forward, and this is a good, I think, stepping stone for her.
TK.
Well put.
I think you guys got it all covered.
I think that's your favorite line of any podcast.
It is.
Ned, did you have anything that you want to add there?
I'll go ahead and say that I agree with Vince when it comes to. I think that Ash definitely puts out good work, and I can almost tell that she's been wanting to go ahead, really kind of maybe move on, move forward, uh, start challenging for a belt maybe down the line. Once she gets into more of a swing of things, this could be a really big start to a good Quinn run. So I'm excited for that.
Now, another thing that happens on that comes up next, we have Andre Dixon versus Dean Rose, and Dixon takes Rose in this one, which you know I don't know. I'm not entirely surprised by that. I like Dixon's work. Rose, I love Rose to death, but I think Rose is still developing as a content creator for longer forms like these, like RRPs. On Twitter, he's amazing. But if writing on RP, he's still getting there, but it's still good stuff. Uh, Ned, what did you think about what you saw from Dixon and Rose on the boards?
Well, I would ultimately agree with you. Dixon is a lot more classical when it comes to just his experience, how he's going to write a role play. He has more experience, so you kind of expect that from him. But Dean has a lot of passion, has a lot of just full on enthusiasm about writing for these matches and going on Twitter and calling people out, be it, members of the Fed or Freddie Prinze Jr. And I'll let some other people chime in before we get into the post match stuff.
I'm just glad that Dixon fucking ate his face. He had that coming. Dean is very entertaining. I agree, Bobby. I think that he's still working on that longer form style. Um, I, Anarchy is kind of going to be his bread and butter right now until he can fine tune that longer style in just a little bit. But you don't ever know what'll happen there. Dixon needed to get a win here, and he picked it up. It's another win for Bob, and here we are. We've retained the championship. Now Dixon has continued the momentum. Bobby Leach is looking good.
Yeah. Centurion, what are your thoughts on the Dean Rose? I don't know if you've interacted much with the man, but what are you? I'd like to get your take on Dean Rose, the character, because he is one of the most intriguing characters in the Fed right now. I'm not saying he's setting the world on fire as like the most winningest, because but fascinating character. Seth, what do you think about
Are we being candid?
it?
Yes.
Yes.
I guess I don't get it. Maybe that's a testament to my age or whatever it is. But like every week I listen to this podcast and you guys gush over Dean Rose I don't understand it. I really don't.
It's the Twitter game. It's
And,
really it's the Twitter game. That's
see, that's my problem is that Twitter is the bane of all existence, and so anytime something great happens on Twitter, I just don't understand it.
here's a funny story. So I don't do Twitter. I have a CCP Twitter account, and I haven't been on it in God knows how long. I hopped on to make a comment on something, and it was something that Dean Rose had said, and within 20 seconds, chewed my face, and I was like, "This is exactly why I don't do Twitter exchanges." Um, and then if you had your eyes on the in character Discord board, them no good bastards had a lot of fun with him over the weekend, which was hilarious.
Yeah, if there's one thing I don't understand more than Twitter, it's the Discord board. I don't know. I guess I'm just too old school to understand all of this stuff, man.
All right. Well, TK, did you have anything to add? What was your thoughts on the match itself?
Well, you guys pretty much nailed it with the Dean's trying to come into this. You know what I mean? He's got to work on the long form or whatever. But he could come back from this. He's just got to find his stride and all that. But Dixon's a beast.
So that next match we have is going to be Jenny Mist versus Champ Sportsman. Jenny Mist has been doing a lot of good work on the boards lately, like Centurion said. And she goes over here. Centurion, do you have any thoughts on this match?
No, a good win for Jenny. This was one of those like Champ could have pulled up the upset, but I think if we went into it just sort of blind, had a thought that like if this was an episode of Monday Night Raw, you'd be like, well, Jenny's going to go over, but there's always a chance. It's a good win for her. It's going to be interesting to see where she goes because you would think that story with her and Betsy is kind of done. So if that avenue's closed, where does she go? But this is a good first start.
Right. And Ned, what do you think about the match? And moreover, what do you think about where the Mist character is heading now that Centurion kind of brought that up?
Oh, it's always kind of difficult to read the stars, if you will. But I am personally expecting some good things from Jenny in the future. Like I'm expecting a lot of success. And part of that is just due to the fact that you can tell that there's kind of been a change in perspective behind, maybe not a change as much as a shift behind the actual writing of some of her more recent work, which I've been asked to go out of the way to read, and I have, and I've really enjoyed it. I think the trash talk is definitely getting better, which will make Jenny, already a threat, maybe even a little bit more of a threat. I, in the back of my head, part of me wonders if Jenny's going to go after the TV title or go ahead and try and get that shooting star. Never know.
She's in line for the TV title shot, technically. She, to a draw with Demos and got a comeuppance match out of it.
Could always cash in that check. It would definitely be interesting to see her against Marf. It would kind of be a toss-up.
Interesting too. I mean, a former left hand against now, Bobby's, if you will. I think just going over here. is building some momentum towards the Leap of Faith Battle Royal at Coreytopia. She did enter the Battle Royal. I think that she's got a lot to prove in her eyes, and that this could be the opportunity for her to do just that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Ginny, going over here, I can't say that I was surprised, but Champ could have pulled it off. I'm looking forward to see what Ginny does in this Battle Royal as well.
Well, I believe that takes us to our next match, which is going to be Alias versus Atara Themis. This was actually a pretty good matchup. I liked a lot of the work from both people in this one. Alias wins. Yeah, if you want to take it from here, Mr. Page.
That's win number 4. Excuse me, for Alias. One more defense, and he's got that case. There's some interesting turn of events surrounding the Extreme Championship. I do believe that Coreytopia, that we're going to see, based off of the fallout of this match, we're going to see King Doc challenging Alias for the Extreme Championship. There's some podcast news for you right there. Coreytopia is already getting bigger. Atara brought her shit. I was very impressed with both pieces of work from all 4 pieces between both the competitors. I thought they were really spot on. Alias is just red hot. He has not lost a match since the tossed over the top rope in that high stakes battle royal, and he's dangerous. He's just dangerous. Centurion, man, where's your head at with this one, brother?
Yeah, this was a tough hill for Atara to climb. Alias has been completely focused. It's clear that he wants that brief. Like it's interesting that he even mentioned not just in character but out of character that the briefcase is one of his goals. So he is 100% focused on that. So to go after a focused Alias is going to be a tough task for anyone, even the king himself. It's going to be a very fun, interesting match.
You know what's fucked? You know what's fucked up, dude? Like, he doesn't need a case.
Yeah, it's interesting because it might not even be about the case. He's the kind of person I could see winning the case and then cashing in like the tag champions or something like that. Like he did, because it's not about that. It's about more setting his own goals, which is something that I can not only relate to but I admire in him. Atara goes through sort of these spurts. Like sometimes when Atara is like very focused, she's extremely good. It just there's sometimes where she takes a week where she's like, eh, which I can't blame her for. I mean, if she has other stuff going on in her life, this is certainly not going to be one of those things that takes precedent. But I want to see more from her. I want to see her start, kicking it up a notch. I don't think she'd ever run into a situation where she doesn't find anyone to work with. I think basically anyone on this roster would be willing to work with Atara, which says a lot about her and the relationships that she's built.
That and Ultimate Atara kicks ass.
And she's the only one that can like outmatch Sean Warstein in his terrible Twitter game.
Oh,
Shots fired.
Ned, where do you go? Let's go to you with the extreme title. The Alias is number 4's in the books for him.
My bad. I was gonna ask, are you sure you're not built for Twitter?
Oh,
So number 1, when you're a champ, one thing that you tend to do is you try to look at other champs, see who else is kind of leading the pack, so to speak. And Alias, the extreme title, I I unfortunately don't think about it a whole lot, and I should, especially when it's held by somebody who is so dominant, especially right now, so foreboding when it comes to these matches he's coming at. Like you mentioned, Doc, this brand new podcast news that Doc and him are going to face at Coreytopia, and I'm kind of worried for Doc. Like, I don't know if he's gonna be able to take Alias off of this winning streak. Um, it's a level of consistency and also really top quality writing that you love to see. And because you and Center right, I'm a little worried if he gets that briefcase. I don't know where he's gonna take it. I don't know who he wants to bop with that thing. Um, but to to be fair, um, you really cannot sleep on Atara even when she goes through these little kind of rest periods or periods where she's recovering, preparing for that next big push. A lot of interesting things going on and just that character's story that I'm very excited to see how it plays out. Just with the fallout of March Madness. And there are so many ways that this character really could develop and go over the course of these stories with new challengers, and I'm really excited to see where Themis goes.
Gotcha.
Somebody,
Gotcha.
oh,
That's
sorry.
that's true. Ned being insightful as ever. Um, did we want to discuss this match anymore? TK, did you have anything to add?
No, they both put in quality work on the boards. Tara put out some of the best stuff I've seen her put out in a while. March Madness, she did real good, but I think this topped what she did at March Madness, personally. And that's pretty much, you guys nailed everything else.
So with that, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Splat Championship match, Ruby versus Lash Donahue. Um, I'm going to be just honest. I know precious little about Lash Donahue. I know a little bit about Splat. This is a cool event, cool cross promotion. They didn't really role play for this. It's more of an angle thing, so I can't really discuss what they did on the boards. But I think this is a good thing. I think this hosting an event like this in the Fed only benefits the Fed. Now, it's a shame that we did have some issues on the website this weekend when this cross promotion was going to happen, but it still happened, and I'm fairly certain the Splat people understand that sometimes technical issues can, rear their ugly head and butt in and just, delay the results that we look for. Sen, I don't know, you know more about the whole multiverse and other feds that are out there. I don't know that you know much about Lash Donahue or if you played with Splat at all. I know Mr. Warstein does that often. Atara has been involved, Raven. So the question I'm going to ask: have you ever tried to do any angle feds? And yeah, have you ever tried an angle fed?
I haven't. Partly because I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know how to do it. Like the only thing I've known is you get graded on a role play and you win based upon the quality of work. Angle feds, and it's not just as simple as I made a character. There's like other work you have to put into an angled fed. Like you have to, come up with. I don't even know. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure what all goes into it. But I I couldn't imagine like creating a character and then basically setting it go, like letting it run its own course. I have to write my own story, and that involves doing role plays.
So, does anybody else want to discuss the happenings of the Splat multiversal the championship match?
It was no disqualification. I mean, it's a really good match. At the end though, Rubes falls victim. Did not bring home the multiverse championship. Um, solid action for the Fed for sure. But like I said, at the end of the day, Lash Donahue who does retain. Rubes, I just want to say, shout out to you for uh, representing the XWF and bringing the match to us. Even in defeat, you look like a rock star. We appreciate that.
Let's be honest. Let's call it like it is. Ruby got screwed. Okay. Splat had the opportunity to get a national treasure to represent them on a global stage, and they blew it. All right. This is all a tragedy. I'm already in contact with Rudy Giuliani and some other folks. We're taking this to the Supreme Court. In the end, when this is all said and done, Ruby will be the champion.
Not if you got Rudy Giuliani on the case, brother. I'm sorry about that. Tell her I said good luck. Bobby, man, where are we going next?
I was gonna say. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Ned.
I was gonna say that the rematch is gonna take place at 4 seasons, but you're gonna find out which one last minute.
Nice. That does lead us into the main event, which was Marv versus Clint Fatwood, the television title defense. And yeah, this one was I want to say a foregone conclusion. Fatwood didn't even show up on board.
No. Yes. I mean to cut you off, Bobby. Go ahead.
No. You didn't. I mean, this was a foregone conclusion. I mean, which is kind of a shame because I have a very specific love in my heart for Dusty Rhodes. And he's using that as the pick base. But yeah, Marv is still the TV champion. I wish there was more we could talk about because credit to Marv. Even though he was facing down a no-show, his art, like the work that he did put in, his RP was pretty good. And I think everybody here could acknowledge it's really disappointing when you put out an RP that is good and it's high quality and the opponent no-showed. So
It's disheartening for sure.
yeah.
But I do think, again, television's television, right? So Marf just knocked off Demos for the TV to win the TV title. Now he's just successfully defended it. Believe that at Coreytopia, we're going to see Marf defending the television's championship against Bobby Lee's own Andre Dixon.
That's going to be a hot match. I look forward to that. I think that's going to be a good match. Hard to pick that one.
Oh man.
TK,
If
you're our resident. I'm sorry, Ned. Go ahead, bud.
I wasn't trying to cut anybody off. I was gonna say,
You were, you prick.
I know. Look, brother, I'm here looking out for myself and my own brand. Anyway, when it comes to Marv, you got to give the man some respect. He put out good work, and sometimes somebody no shows, sometimes you have conflicting booking, and you just go ahead and follow through on it all. And it's going to be very interesting because Fatwood is actually facing Marv again in the tag team turmoil. And you've got to think at least, somewhere with Marv, although this is but back, you wish that you could put out better work against, somebody else's best or somebody else's work at least. that's got to be a little heartening because you're thinking, oh, I already looked good on Saturday. I can use that to my advantage. He can really take that and roll with it. And I think he's going to be a very good television champion. I guess I'll go ahead and shoot it over to TK.
Well,
Steak was really good. Thank you.
well, uh, Marv going over here. Everybody's already pretty much said foregone conclusion, right? No show. But the hits didn't end there. No. The real champs came out and laid waste to Marf and Fatwood. Some shenanigans. Them no good bastards come out and rough them up. Well, talking a little shit themselves. Both of these competitors are in the tag team turmoil, so of course, them no good bastards would have to show up and end the show with the real champs.
Rainbow laser death sequence. Centurion, what are your thoughts with Marf's retention and the possibility of Dixon Marf at Coreytopia?
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. Dixon was another one that we didn't really mention when it come to like older school guys. Dixon, at least in his previous character, predates me, and we saw Dixon over in WGWF, but this is the first run, I believe, with Dixon in XWF. And
Yes.
I mean, so far, he's shown exactly what he's been his entire career, which is awesome. Marv has been a breath of fresh air, I think, in the Fed. I mean, he just sort of came out of nowhere. He's got this sort of funny name, it's like, well, Marv, but then he starts role playing and he's really freaking good. So unfortunately, he didn't get the challenge that I was hoping for this week. I think Marv is the kind of person that needs someone to push him. Um, Dixon is absolutely going to push him, and so I think we're going to see some really quality work out of Marv in 2 weeks. That should be a really fun match.
It's got a lot of potential. Whole way around, Savage was a pretty rock solid fucking program, which will lead us to Warfare on Wednesday night, and then we all shift gears to what's turning out to be probably one of the biggest shove it shows I think we've had in a while. You've got the Leap of Faith Contenders Battle Royal. You've got Centurion and Ruby challenging for the tag titles against them no good bastards. You've got King Doc and Alias for the Extreme title. You've got Dixon and Marf for the TV title. There's a lot going on this fucking show.
Yeah, Covet's going to be pretty big. I'm excited for it. I think a lot of people should be pretty hyped for it. If you haven't signed up for it yet, try to get involved in the show. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of us are going to be involved.
Yeah, you're talking about a pay-per-view quality type event between pay-per-views. It's going to be a good one.
Back in sort of I guess you could say the older times, we used to have these super shows that were like they were based off of the date. So you'd like have like 05, 05, 05, right? Like, you know, um just and we had that a few times with different dates during the aughts. This reminds me a lot of those super shows that like they weren't quite pay-per-views, but everyone wanted to get involved with them because there was something special about them. That's what I feel about this show.
Yeah, the show, it reminds me of the old super shows. I wasn't around for those when they were happening in the XWF. To draw an analog to real wrestling, reminds me of old WCW Clash of the Champions that would be presented. Um,
Mhm.
Speaking of which, I think I just got a message from Fatwood. I have to read it, and then I'll be able to present it to you. Just give me a moment, okay?
Talk amongst yourselves.
Ned, what were you going to chime in and say?
Well, it's kind of, egg on my face sitting here in the room when I believe I'm one of the only people in here who hasn't signed up for Coreytopia. And I'll definitely consider it just because it's like Sint was saying with like the old super shows. You can still read a few of them on some of the archived versions of the old XWF site. And there's something very exciting about that kind of experience. And Bobby was bringing up old Clash of Champions. You could even make an analogy towards something like AEW's Winter is Coming or their Bash at the Beach that they did, where it's just like a souped up kind of weekly show in a bit, in some terms, you could say. But it's definitely looking to be one of the biggest shows that we've seen, at least from a Shove It perspective, if not just in general. There's a ton going on at Coreytopia. And I don't think it's just going to be like a novel experience. I think it's going to be something truly special. So I might have to get in on that, actually.
Do you know? Go ahead, TK. Sorry.
You know what you should do though, Ned?
What?
Get out your shove it before this show airs.
Yeah, maybe I should.
Take it, Paige.
So
I was gonna say I announced another announcement for the Coreytopia show. The Universal Champion's going to be in the house. He's going to watch the Battle Royal with King Doc. So Ned, you got to get on the show in some form or fashion because just about all the champions are represented, but you.
yeah, it's true. I'm definitely gonna have to show my big ugly mug somehow. But I'm also gonna be really excited, and I'll probably be talking with the rest of the Avalanche boys, especially now because we have Dean Rose as one of our members, as is mentioned on Savage results. But I'm gonna be very intrigued myself, and I might just have to get a match in there, maybe even if it's not a title. Just for the very least to get that heart, at least in the building.
Well, guys, I just read the message from Fatwood. Do you guys want to hear the message from Fatwood that I got?
Yeah.
Okay. TK, do you want to hear the message I got from Fatwood?
Of course.
Centurion, you want to hear the message I got from Fatwood?
I guess he doesn't want to.
Paige, do you want to hear the message I got from Fatwood?
I don't think you got one. I think you're still waiting on it.
No, I got it. I'm waiting for Centurion to tell me if he wants to hear it. And I'll be waiting the rest of my life. So I'm just going to go ahead and read the message that I got. And I quote, "Listen here, Jack. I might have lost to Moth on Saturday night for that television championship on the mother station, Savage. But that's okay. I'm going to come back with my partner. We're going to go into that tag team turmoil. We're going to go ahead and we'll become the number one contenders for the tag team championships. You understand?" And that's what I got from him.
Are you sure it wasn't forged?
No.
I didn't hear a dad in there.
Since I got a good question for you, and this is one that we've asked a lot of folks that have partaken in the show, and I didn't think about it until we were covering the show, covering Savage show. Your Mount Rushmore, your top 5, your Mount Rushmore of e-fetters.
Active or all time?
All time. You can do both. You can do all time and you can do active.
Okay. Well,
you can do both or go collectively. I don't care.
Well, we'll do all time because all time's a little easier. It's the brand, Steve Jason, James Raven. Um, I hate to put him on here, and he's just gonna start jacking off when he hears his name, but it's Sean Warstein's on my
Knew
side.
it was coming.
Yeah. Um. Uh. God.
Thunder
See,
Knuckles. And there you have it, folks.
no, I tell you the truth, Thunder Knuckles. Um. The problem is there's a ton of people I could probably put at number 5 because like 'cause I feel like I'd be missing someone out if I put someone else in there. I guess biasly I have to put Tomoko Hanahara in at number 5.
I could
Um,
see that.
but I could have easily put you. I could have put Ranma. I could have put
Oh,
Cooper. Like a lot of people weren't around during the days when Cooper was there, but he was very good. Um, but I think in the end, just because of our history, I have to put Tomoko at number 5.
yes, I yield to Tomoko. That's a blast from the past. That uh, again, a tremendous writer, and I believe that I don't think that I would have gotten to see much of her work if it wasn't for you bringing her to the WGWF and introducing her there. Um, and then since then, it's just followed her all over the place. I wish that she was still doing the game now.
Apparently she's still kind of sort of maybe part time. I don't know if it's angled or not. Um, but there's another Fed. She's has a character that's like a K-pop idol because
Hmm.
of course she does because it's Keiko and that's what she like that's kind of character
Hmm.
that she roll with. But like the other day I was on Twitter and I saw that she was booked in some match and I was like, what? Wait, what? I tried to reach out to her and I haven't heard back. But Keiko's the kind of person that you can message and then like 2 months later she'd be like, oh, I just got this. So who
Oh,
knows?
dude, like there was here's my Keiko story for you. So she used to come over. She used to once a year would come over to Tampa, come over to Florida, and into the Tampa Bay area for 3 years in a row. It was because coincidentally, when she would come, that would be the same time that Ronmo would be in town. So we would always make a big thing out of it, and Famine would come up from Orlando, and we'd all kind of convene in Tampa. 3 years in a row. Oh yes, I'm going to meet you guys there. We would always go to the same bar for karaoke, and it was an Irish pub. Uh, 3 years in a row. I'm going to meet you there. 3 years in a row. Never shows up.
I feel like it's almost like for a modern reference, it's like Bearded War Pig on the podcast. Like at this point, you almost don't want them to show up because that would almost get rid of the legacy.
Well, I asked her if she was actually real. Like, are you a real person? It's a smart ass because every time I'd get messages of apology, and I'm like, no, I just think you're a catfish now. You've done this 3 years in a row. It's been you've had an interesting ride, man. I know guys, before we wind this up and wrap this up, does anybody have anything else for Scent?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. I don't know if we got to them yet or not. I believe we haven't. This one's from Vinny. Um, Sent, who is the worst of the old timers and why is it Fuzz?
I mean, clearly it's well. I mean, well, if are we talking worst the old timers other than me? Because I would put myself probably last on that list. What do we consider? I mean, what do we consider old timers? Like just guys who were here prior to the 2012.
That's a fair question because that I think that would be it for me. An old timer is somebody that's I think for everybody, an old timer is somebody who was here before them.
Okay.
So
It,
that's a matter of perspective. So
my
you can
problem
feel free to
is
say how you wish.
it's really hard to say because I could sit here and rip on Barney Green for example because he was easy to rip on back in the day, but the last couple times he's actually wrestled, he's put out really good stuff. So it's like I can't even pick on Barney anymore. So I don't know who I would say was the worst of the old timers. Now that Andre Dixon's back, I'm gonna say him because I haven't picked on him enough.
Okay. So something I like to ask is like, especially about creative process. Why don't you describe to us? You're going to get ready. You know you're going to write a role play. What do you do to set the mood? Like, do you listen to specific music? Do you have to like set the lights in the room a certain way? Do you need to cuddle a specific blanket? I don't know. Like, take us through your creative process.
I used to listen to music while I wrote. I can't do that anymore. I have to have like no sound coming in because I'll get distracted. When it comes to the actual creative process itself, like I'll come up with an idea based upon what I'm doing that week. So like for example, my most recent role play, my WGWF, no, Jesus, you got me screwed up now. My UGWC role play. I wrote it in Good Springs, Nevada, because I just got done playing Fallout New Vegas, and it's actually like referenced within the role play where it's like you're just such a fucking nerd that's why you're here. Um, so like, or I'll hear a song and I'll get some sort of inspiration from that song of I have this sort of thought, in terms of what to do here, or TV show or something. If I'm completely blank, I'll just start writing Centurion in a place and hope something comes from that. That's usually when you get those like, "Wow, he's really boring" type comments, because it's usually like, "Well, let's put Centurion in a coffee shop and see what the hell happens."
Okay. All right. Another good question that I like bringing up again and again. Um, what is your favorite book? And by that I mean the book that you feel that anybody listening right now, anybody involved with that, should pick up and read immediately.
I don't read. Like if I'm up to the point now in my life where it's like if you could put it on YouTube, I'd rather consume it that way. So I don't know. Everybody's read To Kill a Mockingbird because they went to high school. Other than that, I can't give you any books because I don't fucking read.
I love that
I mean,
answer. I don't fucking
me
read. Centurion quoted.
let me let me step in real quick. Hey, what's the beef with Clint Fatwood?
What?
He wouldn't talk about the TV title match. Why wouldn't you talk about that a minute ago?
Oh, I do because Clint Fatwood didn't roleplay, so I just moved on to the upcoming match, which was um, Marv versus Dixon. It wasn't. I mean, I felt like we covered everything when it came to It was essentially a squash, wasn't it? Like,
So you just thought remaining silent was the right thing to do.
well, yeah, I mean, what else am I gonna say?
Okay, go ahead, Bobby. I just wanted to make sure.
Um, questions we have up here. Would you ever want to pursue the Universal Championship again?
I feel like the last match I had ended the story, um, which is why when I went into it, I put in one of my role plays the stipulation of if I don't win, I'm never fighting for the Universal title ever again. Um, so I wouldn't ever want to break that promise. I think that time is over, um, and Centurion's dying legacy is going to be he's going to be the greatest wrestler to have never won the Universal title.
All right. This one comes in. Ned, do you want to go ahead and ask the question?
Sure. Could you send it to me?
Well, what's your favorite game?
What's your favorite game, Sin?
Like video game.
Yeah.
My favorite series of all time is the Fallout series. Um, my favorite game. I mean, I've got a sort of a nostalgia for Perfect Dark because my brother and I would sit there and we would play it for hours. Um, but if I'm being honest with myself, it's probably Fallout 3 for the simple fact that like it I probably could have been a straight A student in college if it wasn't for that game. Like I put so many that was the one game that like I would turn off and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's light outside again. I must have been playing this for 12 hours.
How many
Did you have
playthroughs
a
have you had?
I've got you both at the same time. What who said what?
Well, me and Ned, we think at the same speed. That's why I like him and keep him around. The question, Ned, if you don't mind, I'm gonna ask first this time. How many playthroughs did you have of? No, you're fine, Ned. You don't have to apologize. How many playthroughs did you have? Fallout 3 and then Fallout New Vegas?
How many playthroughs of Fallout New Vegas have I played?
Yeah.
Um, regular game and DLC, I've probably gone through 4, which is
Oh,
low considering like I've gone through probably 8 or 9 of them in Fallout 3.
right. And Ned, what was your question?
I was going to ask if he was familiar with the franchise prior to 3, or if that's what introduced him.
3 introduced me, but I was able to go back and play the first 2, which are markedly different than of course the Bethesda series. But I'm glad I was able to play them just for the lore of it because even though the company's changed and the whole game's changed, they kept the lore, which is awesome.
Got one for you, Sent. This is off the boards. Anybody that you regret not having a chance to work with?
Um, there were some guys in that middle era there, like the the Theo Prices, not really that active anymore. Um, even I got to work with Vinny once, but not when he was really sort of had his peak. Uh, the John Samuels type folks, like the folks that were really big when I was gone from the game. I didn't get the opportunity to really see much of them. And early, there were some folks like Joe Garza, um, who was a real old name. I never got to work with him. The plus side is that like for the vast majority of time, I was around, so I got to see most people. There was just that one stretch there towards like we'll say between 2012 and 2019, some really good folks that were there that work with.
Yeah,
What? Go ahead.
I
Sorry,
was about
Bobby.
to say, like that was the era that I came in. I can speak towards. There was some good talent there. I would have loved to Centurion against some of the names from that era. Um, I think we say it every week. Trax versus Cent would have been good. Luca versus Cent would have been good, and I think Game Girl versus Cent would have been pretty good too. So
I feel like I worked with Trax. Was Trax in WGWF for a short period of time?
I don't know.
Paige, you
I
remember?
don't. I don't think so.
That name sounds so like I feel like I was worked with him in some capacity, but I do not remember why. But he's so familiar to me. Yeah, the other 2 names I knew. I got to read Gamer Girl's stuff when she was in the March Madness tournament. Phenomenal stuff. Who is that, by the way? Because that's a side character.
I have
I'm
no
not.
clue.
Are we
I'm
allowed
not
to
sure.
say?
I thought they were pretty open about it, but maybe not. Maybe.
It's Noah.
Oh Jesus, really?
Yeah.
No, well then fuck that. I don't want to give him any more credit.
Yeah, no,
You just sucked on the tip of Noah's dick. How did it taste?
That's the last thing he needs is me kissing his ass after everybody else has done.
if I could add a little to that, that's he actually sent me the first character banner I ever had Game Girl account, so that's the first DM. It's still in there.
Yeah, the one under my signature now, the Centurion one. That's the Gamer Girl.
Yep.
Okay.
Another one for you, Sent. What championship have you held in the XWF or in any other Fed that's meant the most to you, and why?
I said this when I was on the EFED podcast, and it still holds true. It was my heart title run, just for the simple fact of I was gone from the game for that long, and I felt like winning the heart title was sort of this. It almost proved it to myself again, of that you could be away for so long and you can come back and you can still have that ability. That was, I would say, that in the XWF, that was my crowning achievement. And in general, winning the WGWF title as Jocelyn Camden was was a rush, and it proved to me that it wasn't just a character thing, because I completely dumped my character and got a brand new one and still was able to beat it at a high level. Um, that was pretty great for me.
I have a question. So it's a really weird one, but I like asking it. Um, what made you come up with the name Centurion for your character specifically? I know it's an actual word, but
Yeah. Um, Back when I was a child, I played a lot of Age of Empires 2, and that was the name of one of the units that you could create.
okay.
Literally, it's literally that simple. It like,
Yeah.
and I say it too. I'm like, I'm glad I had the foresight to use Centurion and not like Clubman or something, because I would have changed the name 5 times by now. At least Centurion's kind of like a neat name.
As someone who has let your politics sometimes guide your writing, would you like to see more characters who are reflective of real world ideologies or events?
Yes. And I will also say this, if any of the quote unquote Twitter crowd catches wind of this, because the discourse around this gets kind of murky. Um, and I say this as probably one of the like most like woke lefty people in the game. Certain things you have to touch on, and they could be uncomfortable, but you can't just hand wave them and say that that's not something that we can touch, because it is reality. When we start when we start saying that you can't write as this person or that person, like of course stay away from slurs, like that stuff. I think is pretty uh you know universally known. But like there was someone on Twitter that was like, oh, you can't, this person can't be in a Fed anymore because they handle a Trump supporter. Well, Trump got 71 million votes. It's impossible to like, you can't just pretend that that doesn't exist. You can't just pretend that the racism part of the world doesn't exist. Like, these things do exist, and they do they do exist within the world. And to say like we can't touch these topics, I don't agree with that.
Right. How do you feel then? Okay, just ballpark question then. Just throw it out there. Say that you decide to create a character that's in that vein. That is, you know, what you're describing. What do you feel is a tasteful way to portray that character, or would you even just try to be tasteful about it?
Well, all you have to do is watch Fox News. You can see it every night. Like, there are ways that you can write someone who's incredibly racist without going into slurs, because like people have jobs that do that for them essentially. You I tasteful. There's no way you could do it. Like, tasteful is not the word to use. Um, but there's a way to do it where you're not crossing lines. They're still going to be heels. You're still going to say things that you're not going to like, that are the character's probably going to sound a little dumb, but Tucker Carlson has a show every night where he does that. You can't just
Let's shift away from politics. let's get off that boat. Here's a question. Demos wants to know when he can have a match.
when what?
Demos wants to know when he can have a match.
He wants a match with me.
Yes,
Why?
that's his question.
Doesn't he challenge everybody?
Yeah.
Would it even be like an honor to fight Demos at this point because he just challenges everybody? Demos, be a little pickier on your challenges. Have more pride in your work, man. Come on.
I've got a question for you, Sent. A lot of people want to know, how excited do you get when you open your role plays and see that Thunder Knuckles hates it?
Yeah, there aren't many things in life that annoy me. I've been in politics now for over 10 years, and I've dealt with just some of the most like far out there class of characters. But Thunder Knuckles exists on a plane that I never thought that I would that would be possible. Just if you've ever had a hemorrhoid, it's
Thank you.
Keep
I
going.
appreciate that. I appreciate that answer.
I am glad that you expressed it that way because there is a question here on the boards that I can just lead right into. This is from Corey. What supplements do you take to manage your prostate health?
you act like I take anything healthy. This thing is shut down. At this point I'm basically running on Twinkies. The moment that I stop consuming sugar, I will just keel over and be dead.
What yeah, do you got anything?
Yeah, I do. I've just been trying to wait my turn. 1 second, I'm giggling. Fucking hell. Prostate health. So I guess kind of in that vein, and kind of in the vein of a question that Paige asked much earlier. He asked you about how do you keep a character like Scent fresh, over time? How do you keep him relevant? But something that's a little more intriguing to me is how does it feel to kind of continue the narrative of a singular character or cast of characters over, a decade or so?
I think it's why I like doing it. Because it feels like I'm continuously accomplishing a goal, as if like the last 20 years have all been worth something. Um, I was going to go further than that, but I don't know what I would say.
That's fair. No, that's perfectly fair. It's just very interesting to me, as a writer, because speaking from my own experience, I do kind of think about, oh, when am I gonna start like losing out? When am I gonna start losing a sense of enthusiasm or just going, oh, I don't know if I can do this with Ned anymore. And
Yeah,
then I look at somebody like you, and you just keep at it.
you have to give yourself permission to walk away. I think that's the hardest thing that some people have, especially when you're on a hot streak, is you sit there and you go, "Oh, I have to keep going." I did that once when I won the world title. This would have been 06, 07. I was running on fumes, but I was still churning out pretty good work, and I ended up winning the world title. And I ended up having a massive mental breakdown not long after that, and it set me back like years in my career, in my development. So you have to give yourself the ability to just sit there and say, right now I'm walking away, and it might be 2 months, it might be 2 years, but eventually you'll do something, you'll be playing something or walking or somewhere, and you can go, oh, I have an idea that's actually going to fit Ned K in this moment, and you'll come back to it.
Thank you for the answer. If I could chime in, I think something that's really interesting to me about a lot of your answers today is how much you value restraint, be it in a character approach or just your ideas for writing or your ability to succeed as a writer when it comes to the XWF or e-fetting in general. Thank you for that insight. I really appreciate
I figure I might as well keep talking as long as someone still wants to listen.
Burbs, you got anything else, brother?
No, nobody else wants to listen to Centurion anymore.
That's
Well,
fair. That's a fair and valid thing.
I sent, man, I respect the hell out of you, and we go way back, and you're always a pleasure to talk to. We really appreciate you stopping by and giving us some of your time today and this afternoon into the wee hours of the evening. So I'm gonna throw it over to Ned first, man. Go ahead and say your goodbyes, and Bobby will hit you, and TK, and uh, then we'll wrap this thing up.
All right, thanks for coming here. I hope to have conversations with you in the future for sure. But it's been wonderful to have you on and just listen to your unique perspective based on your personal history with the XWF. Thank you.
Unique perspective is a really good way. But thanks, Ned.
Sent, I want to thank you for coming on. Appreciate the time you've given us this wonderful Sunday afternoon. And I hope you come back on. It's been a blast.
TK, continue to go fuck yourself.
I'll take it.
Burbs.
Hey, Seth, thanks for coming on. Look forward to talking with you more in the future.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, man, the door's gonna be always open for you, brother. This has been it's been a really good chat. It's always fun catching up with you, man. It's there's never a dull moment.
Well, now that I know that this thing exists, that this little group here, I'm just gonna be like the rest of the people in here, and just lurk with the mic muted and do little dumb gifs in the chat.
Yeah, we do get a lot of creepers in the background. As long as they don't break our rules, we're okay.
Hey,
Definitely gonna have you
tramp on-
back.
Don't tramp
That-
on the dumb gifts in the chat. I have been spamming. I just looked up 2 words, dancing dwarf, and that's what we've been looking at in the chat.
Dancing dwarfs.
Dancing dwarf.
Sent, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you now. We'll have you back on the Leap of Faith preview show, which we didn't have a whole lot of results to cover with you, man. On behalf of Ned and Bobby and TK and myself, man, once again, thanks for coming on, brother. We do appreciate we do appreciate your time.
I look forward to coming back.
Well, we're definitely gonna see you soon, my man. And the guys, that's gonna wrap it up. That's another episode of the XWF podcast, man. We appreciate you listening. Role play, show up, show out. Guys, have a good night.
Yeah, let's have fun. And also, Vinny, can you take us out, please?
All right, guys. Well, once again, for today and forever, as always, fuck you, Ghost Tank.
Thanks for listening to the XWF Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the XWF YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at XWF1999. And don't forget to check us out at XWF99.com. Be sure to join us next time where the action never slows down.